Hopefully a simple one today, although they always start out like that. I've got Zaalbar from the Gaming Greats collection. I'm not too interested in this character, but I'm hoping to turn him into a Tals, specifically Muftak from the Cantina, and I'm going to do it with some Apoxie Scuplt, so it's a chance to practice some hair and fur sculpting, which I've never done before. It should be interesting. And he's going to sit there just looking cool, drinking his drink with his proboscis dipping in there, and that'll be it, hopefully. So without further ado, let's go to the painting cupboard. Let's throw caution to the wind and show no restraint. Anything can happen in the cupboard of paint. Okay, we're not actually in the painting cupboard, but I didn't want to cheat you out the jingle for a second week running, so here it is. And now I'm mixing up the Apoxie Scuplt, and wear gloves when you're mixing it if I were you, because I think when the chemical reaction's happening, for me anyway, it gives me a little bit of irritation, so just wear the gloves. Pop off Zaalbar's head, and I want to keep the harness in one piece, but that wasn't actually practical, but might use it one day for something else. And then just cutting away some of the cowl, does that sound right? Anyway, his neck fur, because towels don't seem to have such a long neck bib. So cutting into that and around the hands as well, the fur is a lot shorter, so just chipping away, ooh, careful there, and just trying to get a bit of a sort of natural fur feather edge, and hopefully adding some articulation to the legs by cutting some of that away. And then I wanted to make sure when I painted him, I didn't have any brown like up hidden in cracks. So I sprayed it white. That was quick, wasn't it? And just making sure that any bits that might be seen would all be white. Meanwhile, I had to put the Apoxie Scuplt in some saran wrap cling film just to try and keep it workable.
I can't see anything.
Don't worry. I'll have you uncovered in a minute. Yeah, you just sit tight. It's okay. You're okay. That's it. All right. Not very nice for the poor guy, is it? Anywho, just wedging the epoxy clay on, just trying to get roughly the right head shape. And this really is just trial and error, but the great thing about this Apoxie Scuplt is, you know, you can move it around, you can add bits. It's pretty, you know, forgiving to use, I think. Once I put those little indents in for the eyes, that started to help orientate me to the shape of the head. This is just a wire, a very strange looking wire holder, which I thought might make a nice proboscis, so I've cut a bit off, but I sold him short, so we're going to make that longer later. Here I've found, in inverted commas, a clothes pin. I think that's what it is, must be my wife's, and it's just the right sort of shape. As a tool, I found it useful. I got better as I went along with this. It's fairly easy to do, but I'm just making sort of slightly curved shapes and then feathering the edges when I get to them. Don't worry too much about the sort of clay bogies that are on there. When it's dry, you can just brush the bits off, so it does get a bit cleaner. I followed a tutorial. I'll put the link to the tutorial by Anne Ma, who's shown how to sort of sculpt hair and fur. And I'm doing a terrible job in comparison. Now just putting the eyes in. These are like little pearl bits. Just squidging them in. The top eyes, using this reference, again I'll put a link to where the reference photos you found were. The top eyes are quite sunken, so pushing those in, and then when I push them in I flattened the hair on the back, so it's best if you can do the fur and then leave it to dry. Around the eyes then, just using a little bit more clay just to give the eyes, he's got like sort of sockety things around them, so just playing around with that really, just pushing it in then. Just time for some Modge Podge ASMR. Oh yeah, that was pretty great. So I'm just trying to texture his face with this, just dappling, pushing in with the tool. Never thought I'd say these words, but now I'm enlarging his proboscis, and that's too big, but I'll cut that back later. And then, because the proboscis is rubber, covered it with a bit of Modge Podge to see if it would make it easier to paint. And that's done with the clothes pin thing for now, so pop that away. And then I'm going to build out the rest of the body, because it still looks like I'm just like got a towel's head on a Wookiee body. So giving it a little bit of a humpback to give him that slightly leaning forward vibe. So just trying to change the Wookiee shape. And here again, getting a little bit better with this technique, I think, as we go, just with the practice. So the back's okay. You can see me brushing the bits off there. Those pictures you saw me referencing, which were really helpful, was the restoration of the original costume by Tom Spina Design. So I'll put the link in the blurb so you can check those out. It's really cool, even if just to take a look at the brilliant work they did. And now here again, just feathering in, so I'm building up the chest a bit, also the arms. And then I realized I've made him look too muscly, like the 90s Power of the Force figures. Is it Power of the Force in the 90s where they're all muscle bound? So I had to chisel away a little bit at some of his arms and resculpt. Here is where I'm finally, I think, getting my fur sculpting a bit better. So this is probably the best I do at this. This is as good as it gets for me on this project, but still some more to do. So building out the forearms a little bit, again just trying to change the shape from the Wookiee to something a bit more towelsy. I did reference the Clone Wars, had a look at that version as well, but really, you know me, I'm an original trilogy guy, so I really mainly went off the restoration photos, where of course he has no legs, so excuse me. So I just made up with the legs what I thought was appropriate, really. Gave him a little bit of flaring at the bottom. And it helps actually if you let the clay start to harden before you make the shapes, before you start carving into it. So there he is, finished as a shape. I'm now just going to trim his proboscis, so look away if you're of a nervous disposition. Oh, yeah. Mazel tov. Now just painting with a black wash, because I wanted it to feel like there was, is it a polar bear skin that's black underneath the white fur? Is that true, or is that not? Is that urban myth? Anyway, I wanted it to feel like there was depth underneath the fur, so I thought I'll start with a black wash to get in all the crevices, and then put a lighter grey wash, sort of gently brush that over, and then over the top of that put an even lighter wash and gradually build up those layers. But it was hard, man. It was really hard. So what I did instead at this point, because I just thought it's looking too dark, so I covered over the bits I definitely wanted black or darker, and then I sprayed from the top just a bit of a light misting, and that started to get him into a bit better colour. Here, I didn't film the painting of the face. I'm really sorry, but I just splodged around with some browns and some whites and greys, and just tried to create a bit of texture in there over the top of the Mod Podge stuff that I'd used to sort of create that bit of textured surface. I think this was the thing that helped most with the colour of the fur, is just using a makeup brush with pretty much white on it and just very lightly dusting over, catching the high bits, and it really sort of gave some nice highlights on top of the fur. So that made a big difference. The Muftak, except I painted over the eyes and I had to redo the eyes, which was kind of annoying. He's got claws, you'll notice, in a lot of the close-up pictures. So I've got this 3D printing supports that I used, and I cut the sharper edges off those and just stuck a couple onto the end of his fingers, which you'll see in a minute. Just dusting down the shoes. Oh, and then the skin on the toes and the hands, obviously a lighter brown. And there's those claws, look. It's a bit fiddly, but worth it, I think. Then just touch-ups, redoing the eyes, then a bit of gloss just to bring some life to the eyes. And that'll do, pig. That'll do.
Come on, big guy. Time to go home. Worst hosting you've ever.
Let me know what you thought, as always, in the comments. If you enjoyed it, let me know. If you're not a fan of AI, don't worry, I've got you covered. I'm going to put the images that I photographed in order to make the AI, the undoctored, unchanged images, they'll be at the end, so check those out after this little bit. I'm pleased I stuck with him, because I almost gave up a couple of times. It was a bit frustrating in the painting. I wasn't quite getting the effect that I wanted, but I'm glad he's pretty cool, I think. Very heavy because of all the clay, of course, but he still stands pretty well. During the build, actually, my wife said a couple of things of note. Actually, I'm sure she said more than a couple of things of note. But 2 things in particular stuck out. One was, have you seen my dress pin? To which the answer was, of course, no, I haven't. And neither of you, by the way. Keep that under your hat. And the second thing was, why didn't you make him using fur? Because it would have made the articulation a lot easier. And of course, that's correct. I should have made him out of fur. I don't know what I was thinking with all this clay. So I think I'm going to have another go at a version 2 using some fur, because I've got some leftover fur from the Bantha build. So I'm going to give that a go, I think. So if you want to see that, make sure you hit the notifications button next to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you don't miss it when that comes around. But for now, he's going to go in my cantina and hopefully not cause too much trouble. So I'll leave you with the final images, and also a massive thanks. Just thanks so much for your comments and your lovely thoughts and the likes and the shares even. Really kind of you. Hopefully see you next time. May the force be with you.